Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. And today, we're going to do the book name tag. I was tagged by the lovely Amanda, and I will include the original video and Amanda's video in the description box down below. And this was fun, y'all. I just gotta tell you, however, that it was not so easy to come up with books that begin with the letter Y. Just putting that out there. I have 2 books for every letter of my name. I didn't want to make this a very long video. I've had several long videos recently, so I thought I'd go for shorter. And this is a mix of read and unread, like always. And I think with a couple of exceptions, I've read every author. So, okay. First letter of my name would be a T. This is the second book in the Secret of the Isles series. That is Treasure of an Heiress by Rosanna M. White. And before I threw out the year plans for 2025, this was a series I was trying to finish. Amanda and I tried to buddy read this earlier this year, and neither of us were really in the mood for it. However, I do still want to read it, so I will read you the back. 1906. Beth Tremaine has always been drawn to adventure. During her childhood, she fed that desire by exploring every inch of the Isle of Scilly. Now, after stumbling across an old collection of letters and a map buried on her family's property, she's found more adventure than she ever anticipated in the hunt for pirate treasure. But in order to discover where the clues lead, she must search alongside Lord Sheridan, a man she finds insufferable. Sheridan has spent years pursuing whatever archaeological interests pique his imagination. And when he discovers that Beth's search connects with one of his far-removed pirate ancestors, he can't help getting involved. Plus, he finds her irresistible, even though she insists he stole a prized possession of hers. As they work together, following different clues and drawing closer to danger, they start to piece together a story of tragic love and piratical adventure. But which treasure will bring the greatest surprise? The one they find in each other, or the one just out of their reach? And this is obviously Christian fiction, and it was published in 2022, and by 22, Rosanna had converted to Catholicism. However, this is not what I would classify as Catholic fiction. It is generalized Christian fiction. It is published by Bethany House, which does not publish Catholic fiction. So, yes, it's published by a Catholic author, or written by a Catholic author. It's not published by a Catholic publisher. Okay, next up is Catholic fiction and published by a Catholic publishing house. That is To Crown with Glory by Karen Yulo. I always pronounce her name wrong. I am budding reading this in July with Taylor over at Tales and Treats with Tay. And I have been looking forward to this since I bought it last year. I just haven't picked it up. I am picking it up in July, though. I will read you the back. New Orleans, 1795. In the wake of the French Revolution's reign of terror, Alex de Moranville Carpentier, a former lady-in-waiting to Marie Antoinette, now married to her gardener, seeks peace and security in the Spanish colony of Louisiana. But her journey to the man-eating swamp called Attakapas reopens the wounds of her old life in France. Alex is forced to reckon with the choices that saved her life at the cost of her honor, and perhaps her soul. And Pickles is going to talk a little bit. In revolutionary France, no, the old world is dying. The quest for liberty, fraternity, and equality has become a nightmare where the price of dissent is blood. In the wilderness of Spanish Louisiana, a new civilization is beginning to emerge. But in this budding new world, the slave trade perpetuates the systems of oppression that sparked the revolution. Caught between the old and new, scarred by trauma and grief, will Alex ever find a home where she can truly be free? I think it sounds fascinating, and it is just over 300 pages. It's 313 pages, so definitely very interested. Next up is A. I have read both of these. First up would be A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. This is a classic. I read this, I was probably 8 or 9. This started my lifelong love affair with historical fiction. If you have not read it, I cannot recommend this book enough. It qualifies for Big Book Summer. It's 483 pages. I so loved this book, and it is amazing. And if you're not in love with historical fiction, but when you read this, you will be by the time it concludes. And there is not a back to read you for a description, as Fireball wants to play fetch. But I can read you the quote from the New York Times that's on the back. The American classic about a young girl's coming of age at the turn of the century. A profoundly moving novel, and an honest and true one. It cuts right to the heart of life. If you miss A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, you will deny yourself a rich experience. It is a poignant and deeply understanding story of childhood and family relationships. The Nolans live in the Williamsburg slums of Brooklyn from 1902 until 1919. Their daughter Francie and their son Neely. Their daughter Francie and their son Neely knew more than their fair of the privations and sufferings that are the lot of a great city's poor. Primarily, this is Francie's book. She is a superb feat of characterization, an imaginative, alert, and resourceful child. And Francie's growing up and the beginning of wisdom are the substance of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Truly, I loved this book. Okay, another one I truly love. It's one I always talk about. This is book 2 in the Molly Chase series. That is Adrift by Rhonda Ortiz. We all know I recommend this book often and frequently, and every single time I get a chance when it presents itself. I cannot stress how much I love this series, but that isn't going to be a surprise to anyone who regularly watches this channel. So, yeah, go pick up In Pieces, followed by Adrift. The 3rd book in the series comes out next year, God willing, and I am here for it. Okay. M was not a problem on my shelves. I have a plethora of books that begin with M. First up would be My Dear Hamilton by Stephanie Dray and Laura Kamori. This is a library shop find. This is definitely a Big Book Summer qualifier. It is over 600 pages. I want to read this book. I know I've read this when I hauled it, but I will read you the inside flap. A General's Daughter. No. No. Go eat your lunch and stop. Coming of age on the perilous frontier of revolutionary New York, Elizabeth Schuyler champions the fight for independence. Okay, sorry about that. Bird issues happens once in a while. And when she meets Alexander Hamilton, General George Washington's penniless but passionate aide-de-camp, she's captivated by the young officer's charisma and brilliance. They fall in love, despite Hamilton's bastard birth and the uncertainties of war. A founding father's wife, But the union they create in their marriage and the new nation is far from perfect. From the glittering inaugural balls to bloody street riots, the Hamiltons are at the center of it all, including the political treachery of America's first sex scandal, which forces Eliza to struggle through heartbreak and betrayal to find forgiveness. The last surviving light of the revolution. No. When a duel destroys Eliza's hard-won peace, the grieving widow fights her husband's enemies to preserve Alexander's legacy. No. Okay, so back to what I was saying. But Longberry's secrets threaten everything Eliza believes about her marriage and her own legacy, questioning her tireless devotion to the man and country that have broken her heart. She's left with one last battle: to understand the flawed man she married and the imperfect union he never could have created without her. I think this sounds fascinating. I'm thinking it's going to go on my July list. It's a July kind of book for me. So, yeah. That being said, we'll see how my June reading goes before I make that decision. Okay. Oh. Next up would be Memoirs of Cleopatra by Margaret George. This obviously qualifies for Big Book Summer. If you've never read Margaret George, I cannot say enough. Okay, bird is now partially covered, and Friday afternoon mowing has started, so I apologize. Where were we? Memoirs of Cleopatra by Margaret George. If you have never read Margaret George, she is one of, if not my favorite, historical author. And I will read you the back. Best-selling novelist Margaret George brings to life the glittering kingdom of Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, in this lush, sweeping, and richly detailed saga. Told in Cleopatra's own voice, this is a mesmerizing tale of ambition, passion, and betrayal, which begins when the 20-year-old queen seeks out the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar, and does not end until, having survived the assassination of Caesar and the defeat of the second man she loves, Mark Antony, she plots her own death rather than be paraded in triumph through the streets of Rome. Most of all, in its richness and authenticity, it is an irresistible story that reveals why Margaret George's work has been widely acclaimed as the best kind of historical novel, one the reader can't wait to get lost in. I completely second that description. I did start this way back when I started my channel. I believe I'm on page 20, and I have not read this because of the quality of the book. I have not read this because when you first start Booktube, you get all caught up in the, for lack of a better way to describe it, the competition of Booktube and everybody reading short books to have the most books out in a month, and we all know that doesn't work for me. So I'm obviously not reading it this summer, but it is very high on my list. So okay, next letter. Oh wait, it's another M, and it's another Margaret George book. This would be Mary, Queen of Scotland and the Isles. I've owned this book for a very long time. I've carted it around the country with us, and there is no good reason I haven't read it yet other than life. And this one was published in 1992 for the first time. And there is no description to read to you for this, but we all know who Mary, Queen of Scots is, and this one comes in at 866 pages. And I love this cover. I don't know if you guys can see this depending on the light outside, but I love her writing. I really, really do. Okay. And the second book for the second M is 354 pages. That is Meet Me in Monaco by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. I have only read one other book by them, and that was a DNF for me. That was Christmas with the Queen, and it just didn't work for me. I've heard nothing but praise for this author duo. This was a library shop find for me, so I want to try them. And this one is partly epistolary, partly just straight up novel. It's told from multiple points of view, and I'll read you the back. Set in the 1950s against the backdrop of Grace Kelly's whirlwind romance and unforgettable wedding to Prince Rainier of Monaco, this page-turning novel of passion, fate, and second chances from the New York Times bestselling author Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb takes the reader on an evocative, sun-drenched journey to the Côte d'Azur. And flies today are just out of control. Movie stars and the paparazzi flock to Cannes for the glamorous film festival. But Grace Kelly, the biggest star of all, wants only to escape the flashbulbs. When struggling perfumier Sophie Duval shelters Miss Kelly in her boutique to fend off a persistent British press photographer, James Henderson, a bond is forged between the two women and sets in motion a chain of events that stretches across 30 years of friendship, love, and tragedy. James Henderson cannot forget his brief encounter with Sophie Duval. Despite his guilt at being away from his daughter, he takes an assignment to cover the wedding of the century, sailing with Grace Kelly's wedding party on the USS Constitution from New York. In Monaco, as wedding fever soars and passions and tempers escalate, James and Sophie, like Princess Grace, must ultimately decide what they are prepared to give up for love. So I think this sounds terrific. And Grace Kelly was, an American, became a princess. And I am looking forward to this one. So, okay. Now for the most difficult letter of them all. Why? I scoured my shelves. I had one book on my shelves that began with why, and even then it was cheap because it had the in front of it. And I really wanted two books for each letter, and I found a second book on Amazon. It was on sale. It's by an author I've never read, but Miriam over at Miriam Elizabeth Reads recently read one by her and truly enjoyed it, so I took a chance, and it arrived yesterday, so that's perfect, and it sounds very good. So first up, the book I have read, that is The Yard by Alex Grecian. This is the first book in the Scotland Yard series. Scotland Yard's Murder Squad series. And I have read this. It is 438 pages, so it counts for Big Book Summer if you're participating. They're very hard to find a copy of. This was published in 2012. It is a Victorian murder mystery. I absolutely loved every word of this book. It is not cozy. It is somewhat police procedural, given the fact that, a organized police force is just starting to truly become a thing in this time frame. And I really loved this book. I truly love this book. It opens up in 1889, so it's at the tail end of the Victorian period, and it's told over, I believe, 5 days, and it is absolutely fantastic. So if you see a copy and you're at all remotely interested, do not hesitate. I will read you the back. 1889 London. Jack the Ripper's reign of terror is finally over, but a new one is just beginning. In Victorian London, only 12 detectives, the Murder Squad, must solve the thousands of crimes committed each month. Formed after the Metropolitan Police's spectacular failure in capturing Jack the Ripper, the Murder Squad suffers the brunt of public contempt. But no one can anticipate the brutal murder of one of their own. A Scotland Yard inspector is found stuffed into a black steamer trunk at Euston Square Station, his eyes and mouth sewn shut. When Walter Day, the squad's new hire, is assigned to the case, he finds a strange ally in Dr. Bernard Kingsley, the Yard's first forensic pathologist. Their grim conclusion: this was not a random murder, but in all probability the first of 12, as the squad itself is being targeted. But Inspector Day has one more surprise, something even more shocking than the crimes: the killer's motive. Seriously, if you see it, pick it up. Okay, and for the book I purchased for this would be Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. This is slim. I mean, it's slim. For me, it's unheard of slim. It is, that's the afterword, epilogue, 304 pages. I will read you the back because it sounds fascinating. When an infected bolt of cloth carries plague from London to an isolated mountain village, a housemaid named Anna Firth emerges as an unlikely heroine and healer. Through Anna's eyes, we follow the story of the plague year 1666, as her fellow villagers make an extraordinary choice. Convinced by a visionary young minister, they elect to quarantine themselves within the village boundaries to arrest the spread of the disease. But as death reaches into every household, faith frays. When villagers turn from prayers to murderous witch hunting, Anna must confront the deaths of family, the disintegration of her community, and the lure of illicit love. As she struggles to survive, a year of plague becomes instead Anna's Mirabilis, a year of wonders. I think it sounds fascinating, and as I recall, it is based on true events. I'm pretty sure. Yep. This book is a work of fiction inspired by the true story of the villagers of Am, Derbyshire. Yep. So, okay. That is my name. I'm not going to tag anybody. Oh, wait. Sure, why not? Let's tag Jess over at Pages of Grace. And let's tag Miriam over at Miriam Elizabeth Reads. And who else? Let's tag going through the list in my head. Elma. I will put all their channels in the description box down below. If you need a quick and relatively, depending on your first name, easy video, this is a great one to do. So thank you, Amanda, for tagging me. And if you have any recommendations for letters in my first name, please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.